Okay, so in this video, we're going to be looking at searching through an array using a loop. Okay, so Cambridge says we need to be able to use loops with arrays. We need to be able to add to them and read from them. So we're going to be looking at searching an array in the video to take on that part of the course. So first of all, we're going to set up our array. So I think I'm going to make a shopping list this time. I'm just going to call it shopping, and I'm going to make it equal to, and I'm just going to populate the list with items that you might find on a shopping list. Okay, so it will be a string because the items are going to be words and just things you would normally buy when you go shopping. So bread, for example. Remember, we're separating items in a list with a comma. We'll put milk in there. Maybe apples. Rice, and we'll do one last one, maybe some pop, Coca-Cola or something like that, and then we close the square brackets to see how our list has ended. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set a count, and I'm going to make it equal to 0. Remember this, I'm calling it count because it makes sense in my head, but it wouldn't have to be called count. And then I'm going to set another variable, and I'm going to call it loop. And again, that's because it makes sense in my head that the loop, this variable is called loop, but it doesn't have to be called loop. It can be called something else as long as it makes sense. Remember, all variable names have to be meaningful. Cambridge says that for the exam. And I'm going to make it equal to true because I want and again, it could be false as long as it changes, but in my head, true makes more sense to me because the loop is true. It's going to loop. It's going to repeat. Okay. So once I've done that, I'm going to ask, actually no, I need to set one more thing. I'm going to call it found, and I'm going to make that equal to false. Okay, because I haven't found it, so in my head that means found is false. But again, I could make it true, and as long as I change it to false, that would be fine. All right. So now I'm going to say item, and I'm going to make it equal to an input, and then I'm just going to ask the user what they're looking for. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go straight into my loop, and I'm just going to say while loop, referring to this variable here. So while loop is equal to true and count is less than the length of shopping do the following. Okay, so what I'm basically saying is while the loop is equal to true, which I've set it to true, and count is less than the length of the list, so in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's the length of the list, do the following code. So if item is equal to shopping at position count, then do the following. Found is equal to true, and loop is equal to false. Okay, so because the shopping list at position count, whatever the position may be, is equal to what the person has written into this variable, I'm going to change the found to true because it's found now, and I'm going to change the loop to false. Okay, then once I've done that, I'm just going to come out of the if statement and then just say count is equal to +1. Sorry. Equal to +1. Remember, this is just a quicker way of writing count is equal to count +1. Now once I've done that, I'm going to come out of the loop completely, and I'm going to use an if statement to decide whether I say it has been found or not. So if found is equal to true, then do the following. Print item, comma, and then I'm going to open my speech marks up, found in position, close my speech marks, put a comma, and then put count. Okay, so if it has been found and found has been turned to true, it will say that the item has been found in position and whatever the count is. And if that doesn't happen, else print item, comma, not found. Okay, so let's just have a little run through this before we run it. So I've created a shopping list and I've put these items in the shopping list. Then I've created a count variable and made it equal to 0. Created a loop variable and made it equal to true. Created a found variable and made it equal to false. Then I've created a variable that allows a user to input something and I've asked them what they are looking for. Now I've created a loop which is going to loop through the list to see if what they're looking for is in there. So while loop is equal to true and count is less than the length of the shopping list, so that means if either of these happens, so if count does get to the size of the shopping list, it will stop, and if loop gets turned to false, it will stop. Or either of those has to happen. And then if item is equal to the shopping list at position to count, remember square brackets behind the word shopping list, which is the name of the list here, will reference a place in the list. So if it's at count, if count is 0, then it's looking at bread. If count is 1, it will be looking at milk, and so on. Right. So if the item is equal to the, so what item is here, what has been put in here, is equal to shopping list at position count, then we're going to turn the found to true because we have found it, and we're going to turn the loop to false because we want to stop. Now if it never gets found, the count will keep adding up to 1, and then as soon as the count reaches the length of the list, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this part of the while statement will become false, so the while will stop. And then we will ask the question, if found is equal to true, print that the item is found and say where. If this doesn't happen, do the else statement and print item is not found. So if I run this now and ask what I'm looking for, if I just put something in that I know that isn't there, salt, you can see it says salt not found. Now if I run this again, and this time I'm going to say something that is there, apples, you can see apples were found in position 3. So let's just check to make sure apples are in position 3. And if we remember, for a programming point of view, it's 0, 1, 2, so apples are in position 2. But for someone using the program point of view, we want 1, 2, 3. Now the reason that I've managed to do this is because I put this count plus 1 outside of the if statement, and even if we find it in the first position, the count will count up before this if statement is carried out. So it will always at least be counted once. So when I say count here, it will at least point the one above the actual Python referencing. So it will keep it so the user still thinks that bread is position 1. All right, when really we know in Python, bread is in position 0. Okay, so that is searching through an array using Python. I'll make that a little bit bigger for you so you can take a screenshot and it will look more visible for you. All right, I think I can make that bigger. There you go. So if you need to screenshot that and stick it in your revision notes, you can. I'll see you in the next video when we talk more about two-dimensional arrays.